I picked up this Lane Cedar Chest for a steal at $20. The outside was a maple veneer and the inside was classic cedar, including the original tags from the 1950s. The first order of business was getting rid of the hardware and replacing the dated curved legs. This is only the second time I'm trying to put legs on a piece, and so as you'll see at the end of this video, I made quite a few mistakes along the way. I started by unscrewing the bases and knocking them off with a hammer. Next, I ran to the hardware store and picked up some hardwood to form the base. I started by drilling the holes in the four corners that would receive the leg plate. Unfortunately, I didn't have a big enough drill bit, so there was a lot more work you don't see off camera. Then I drilled pilot holes on all three sections of wood. My plan was to glue them on and use about 8 screws to fasten them to the underside of the chest. To help with alignment, I temporarily held the planks in place with 2 long clamps while the glue set. Once again, I had a few difficulties finding the right length of screw, attempting to make countersink holes, but ultimately I found a solution. I wanted a little extra support, so I added some gripping brackets to the corners. The only thing I have to do yet is paint or stain the entire piece and attach the legs. Stick around because in a few seconds I'll show you everything that went wrong. I want to do a debrief on this base that isn't quite finished yet, but it's almost there. First of all, I ran to the hardware store, and I didn't want to do a 45-degree angle here because I knew I wanted to drill this in. So I did 2 planks like that. I used glue under here, and I also used about 6 wood screws along the edge in addition to the glue, and then I added these 2, I don't know what they're called, bracket pins we'll call them. So it's a little bit unruly, but it did the job, and frankly the only thing you're going to see is this front profile, so I'm not too worried about it. Now, I did have quite a few problems. First off, my drill bit for these was not big enough, so I used the biggest one I had, and then I went in with a drill bit and I tried to carve it out, and it took me at least 10 times per hole to finally get those buggers big enough. Got that in. They're very tight, so I've only added 1 screw. I probably should go in and add the other 2, but it's really firm right now. Now, the screw on the bottom of the bun foot is ever so slightly longer than this piece of wood, so I did do a little bit of pilot hole into this section here, and I'm hoping that that's enough. The other problem I ran into was the screws I intended to use here were not quite long enough to really grab the wood above it. So I did some countersink holes, but I still wasn't satisfied that it was grabbing enough. So I went in and I managed to scrounge up some longer screws. They're not wood screws, I don't think, but they did the job, and so now it's nice and secure. So you know what? It was a learning experience, and I did learn a few things. Now all I have to do is finish up the outside and use some stain and paint, and we'll see how it all turns out. Wouldn't you know, when I went to attach the legs, I realized the placement was off. The front ones were too close to the edges, so I had to go in and drill a new hole for the plate and reattach them once again. When it was finally time to attach the bun feet, I crossed my fingers, but fortunately everything fit just fine, and here you can see the final result. I think it turned out pretty well despite all of the challenges I had along the way, and I definitely would try and do it again on the right piece. My name is Meg, and I show you practical tips for refinishing and flipping furniture. Be sure to hit the follow button for more.